I'm gonna do a live for you guys using the Deadhead deck today. Okay. Like got really warm all of a sudden out here. Like this morning it was not as like when I was running around doing errands and stuff, it was very breezy. Hang on a second. Fix something here. Gotta give myself a little workspace because the cards are not liking this table. It's a little older anyway, the table is, so you know. It's one of them things. Okay. Yeah, I just don't want to get my cards all scratched up. You know, usually I'm working on a smoother a smoother surface. Okay. Again, I don't really want to have to see the neighbor's house in the background. You know, no, nothing personal, just whatever. Not trying to look in somebody's windows, that's for goddamn sure, you know. Where I grew up at too, like out in the country, like you would have to really like work to be looking in somebody's windows, you know what I mean? Because if you live on a farm or some acreage, like you're gonna have to be basically illegally on somebody's property, you know what I mean? But in town, it's like people feel like they have, you know, kind of the right to kind of, you know what I mean, check in on, I'm not saying don't check in on your neighbors, but, you know, some of it it's like, maybe you can just mind your business, you know, right? Okay, do it that way maybe. I didn't bring any incense out either today, so it is what it is. It's very bright this way, so I'm just like, which it is the afternoon, so that is the west. For those paying attention, that has been your geography lesson for the day. All right, let me get a few stones out as well. I have the ocean jasper. I mentioned the other day one of my favorite stones, the yellow calcite. Let's see what else I have in here. And some rose quartz and little heart shapes. So that ought to get us through a bit of a reading. So also, if you do have crystals and things of that nature, you know, the full moon is a good time to cleanse those. You know, kind of sit them out on the windowsill or take them outside and just kind of, you know, some meditation. Queen of Wands, Magical Mystery Tour, Leo, Aries. Aries, it's your season, right? It's your month right now. Spring is busting out, busting loose. And Leo and Sagittarius, Queen of Wands. So for many of you, you have fire in your chart, or there's some kind of passion that you're getting after. Maybe you're starting your garden. Maybe you're going and hitting the sales so you can have all your craft projects lined up when summer hits, and you know what I mean? Like there's things that you're preparing for, but like you're preparing for like fun stuff is kind of the vibe that I'm getting. King of Swords. There might be a King of Swords watching or in your energy, okay? Again, take it as it resonates. If it's not your message today, don't sweat it, all right? Not every message is meant for you. I don't know if this will come across on the camera, one of my Pitts koozies. This was 2022, if y'all know, it was a very special year. Oh boy. The lives we lead. There could also be something relevant that happened in 2022, that's kind of like, the karma on it has returned to the point where it's going to get settled or something. Sorry, it was like I heard something really close, but it might just be an echo from outside. Emperor, again, Aries. Wow, hello. Hello. Is this Aries reading like for the year? Is that what this is? Um you know what the Aries are being like, oh well, duh. Yeah, leaders of the zodiac. You want something done, give it to an Aries. They'll be lighting a fire, leading the charge on their horse, sword drawn, blazing. Right? Maybe that's why we saw the King of Swords earlier. But an Emperor is like one level above, the King of Swords in the sense that they have that ability and others. I'm not saying that all of them are equally able all at the same time, always, right? Just kind of like how our zodiac is. You know what I mean? You might have your sun in this, your moon in that, blah, blah. Okay, so if you don't know your moon sign, we just had a full moon. Go check out your moon sign, especially if you were extra sensitive to this moon. All right, check that out. I actually, in one of my charts, I have Aries as in my moon. And on that chart, my star is Sagittarius, so that's kind of like yay, right? Watch out. And when the Emperor needs stuff done, it's not stuff, it's the four-letter word type. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you doing in my way? Sometimes it doesn't always come across as being like happy-go-lucky, not a care in the world. No. I was just getting this message earlier today too. It's like some of you have never worked for a grumpy white guy and it shows. You know what I mean? Like one of the bars I worked at, the guy was just, had his hat on and I mean, he would crack a joke every now and then or stuff, but he it was kind of that like he's putting up with these kids at this point. You know what I mean? And he'd say like, didn't nobody teach you how to do that? And then you'd think like you're in trouble. He's like, come here, and then he'd show you how to do it real quick. you know. You know what I mean? Like you always think you're gonna be in trouble, but you're not. You know what I mean? It's just called getting it done. And the pendulum has swung so far, right? People wonder why, whoever won the election. Well, you swing the pendulum so far one way, eventually it's going to start settling back, just like the stock market, right? Essentially, eventually it's going to settle, right? Um, so in the meantime, I feel like instead of worrying about that kind of stuff, you're settling, if you will, for doing the fun stuff. This is specific to deadheads as well. I was getting this message earlier because I have heard before, a critique on Jerry's playing when he was playing with the Jerry Garcia band, and they were saying that they I don't know if he ever stated anything like this in any interviews, but the radio show hosts were saying that he preferred that at times because it wasn't as stressful or as challenging as playing with the rest of the guys in the Dead at some points during his career. Now, whether or not you agree with that, obviously, is a different story. And I kind of take that as, you know, anybody can learn a complicated piece of music, right? But only a special artist can make something simple sound good and full of flavor, right? So how many, as a musician, how many songs out there only have 3 chords, but yet we respond to them in very visceral ways. So, when I say like taking it down a notch, from this empress mentality to, a mere queen of wands, right? Well, this is important too. The fun stuff is what, sometimes keeps us going. That vacation to look forward to, that party where, there's probably graduation parties going to be popping up left and right that people are planning. You know what I mean? Festive stuff that, 5 years from now, you're not, hopefully the stock market will have leveled out, but you'll always remember that you took the time out to celebrate while you had the time. Not because so and so woke up and tweeted about this today, right? Like, you know, unless that's your actual job. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's like, we got to kind of compartmentalize these things so we don't turn into this like kind of brutish type character, right? You know? But, sometimes towards the end of our careers, we might get a little grumpy or grouchy because it's like, why isn't anybody listening to what the H I'm saying, right? There's another. I'm kind of in the flight path here. Some days, obviously, like today, it's fairly busy. So, yeah, we got airports in the Midwest, y'all. Right? You know what I mean? This is some of the mentality that you run into, and it's just kind of like, okay, instead of being so brutish and wanting to prove to this person or that person how like ill-informed they are, I'm gonna focus on this. Why I decided to do this in the first place, right? And screw anybody else's opinion on that. Okay? The sunflower has a season to bloom. So, enjoy it. It has growth as well. Okay? So for some of you, there might be some type of new growth happening in the summer. Also, if you are going to be out in the sun, wear your sunscreen, right? You guys ever see that? The wear sunscreen? It came out like as a radio hit when I was just graduating high school, pretty much. I think was the year that it came out. Or the year before, I don't know. Ace of Cups. Look at that, yeah. So yeah, wear sunscreen. Treat your body good, right? Don't do things to cause yourself, to self-sabotage or, that kind of whole like people get so wrapped up in these situations and it's like, well, you know what? Maybe that was just a school crush. Maybe that was just a summer love. You know what I mean? When I'm talking about for that sunflower for a season, okay? It's all right to appreciate it, but it's also all right to let it go if it's not fitting your story anymore, okay? So, focusing on, again, your moon sign may be very relevant here with this Ace of Cups, okay? Because this Ace of Cups, again, is like you being more in touch with your emotional needs. Maybe, you're the type of person that likes to check in with your family, like, at least do a once a month phone call. Maybe you're more of like a twice a week with a certain, your cousin or something, like whatever it is, right? Which, you're allowed to set those, goals and boundaries for yourself, right? Some of you might not be able to rely on certain people that you were before, so that doesn't mean you don't seek that validation necessarily. You just might have to seek it in a different way, but make sure you aren't doing it in a toxic way, right? That might be, going to a reader, going to a counselor, talking to somebody maybe at the same church that you're going to currently. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. 10 of Wands. Okay. So, the full moon has just happened but it's still happening, right? So it may take a moment to set down the kind of stress and the hurdles that you've always felt. You know what I mean? It's like whenever you had a goal, like it's like, oh, jeez. You know, and you're like, just one time, can I just kind of, is there the easy path somewhere, right? It may kind of take a moment, but it will happen, right? Because I feel like this is not supposed to be yours anymore. This could even be like a depression type lifting feeling, or the lifting of guilt, okay, around a situation. We have Easter coming up. That's supposed to be a time to, celebrate the fact that we were even here, right? Hey guys, we didn't blow up the world yet. Yay! All right. Hey man, I grew up in the 80s during the Cold War, and we literally were hiding under our desks, practicing these drills as if that was gonna prevent our little kid bodies from, you know what I mean? If that really happened, you know, and living out, kind of in more of the boonies, you think, oh man, we might be one of them targets, you know what I mean? Right? Yeah. I am a handsome and nice Arab young man, Carrie. That's an interesting name. There's that butter called Kerrygold. Are you the heir to the Kerrygold butter fortune? Can I have your number, please? Please do be safe when interacting from anybody in the chat. You know what I'm saying? So use your smarts with that, folks. All right, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I am not here to encourage any general stupidity, right? Think Red Foreman, that 70s show. Don't be a dumbass, right? 1111 on the likes and the folks in the chat right now. So that's definitely a sign, right? If any message today is your message, don't be a dumbass. Maybe like, Kitty! And he's like the perfect example of like, an old crotchety dude. You know what I mean? It's like, ugh, I gotta explain this to these kids again. You know what I mean? Nobody taught these kids this. Like, I thought this was standard, back in Korea. You know what I mean? Like, for some folks, this stuff is standard issue. And, there's a whole new swath of folks that are coming through every generation, rediscovering things. Right? Some of them might be looking to you, collective, for some advice. You might be a parental figure to somebody. Right? Maybe you're a sibling and you don't have any kids of your own, but maybe your sibling does. So you're going to be an auntie or an uncle or something of that nature, right? So part of your job too is letting go of expectations of, it's more like be all that you can be. You know what I mean? Like, you're already on this path. If you're on the auntie path, be a cool hip auntie. You know what I mean? Like, who says it has to be this way or that way? Yeah, gratitude. Yeah, living in the moment, being grateful. This is the Grateful Dead Tarot deck. Now, this is the meditation oracle deck, though. Okay, so I'm going to do a few meditation cards for you guys before I close out the message. Alrighty. Cherish. Once some of this stuff with the economy, you know, wriggles out, will be cherishing more stable prices, right? Hopefully. Hopefully, right? So again, collective, you might be like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this party, blah blah. Start going to the discount stores. Start going to the thrift stores. You know what I mean? Start doing that stuff now, like that. Sometimes when I'm in the grocery store, they have, like those bubble ones. They'll be on like $1 or something. I'll pick one of those up. Because I know once summer hits, I'll never find it. And if I do, they're going to want like $5 for it, right? It's like you can still have fun, right, with your money, without going overboard, right? Okay. But again, those might be part of the fun memories that you create, okay? And your kids probably aren't going to remember every single pair of tennis shoes that they ever had, right? They say not to reuse shoes from like kid to kid, that like other clothes like are good for hand-me-downs, but shoes you're not really supposed to. Protection. Okay, you see this is kind of like an angel figure here. So whoever this emperor is, collective, this may be a figure in your life that is offering you some kind of protection. This could be an ancestor as well. This could be somebody who speaks kind of in that, that type of manner. And it's not because they don't care about you, it's because they're trying to get the words out so that you can be protected, okay, in the situation. So you would be best to open your ears and listen, all right? My dog's in the far corner of the fence over there. She's looking straight at me like, are you done yet? At least she's not barking like she was the other day on the live. Oh my god, it was so loud. So my apologies on that one. Centering, yeah, giving yourself that love, okay, with the Ace of Cups. So how do you center? Spending some time in meditation every single day. Maybe for you, you don't meditate, maybe you pray. Maybe you go to yoga. Maybe centering yourself means going to kickboxing after, whatever. Right? But I feel like in this sense, it's more like, kind of like even going and scheduling yourself a pedicure, a massage, things of that nature. And somebody would be like, I don't have money for that right now. Well, you know what? There's people that work in those industries that still need to make money. So if you're somebody who can afford that, then go do that, right? Like, I'm not saying break your budget. You know what I'm saying? That's why I mentioned, like going to the dollar stores or whatever, But there's some folks out there, especially karmic folks, that are like, oh, I couldn't do that. Oh, I couldn't do that. You know what I mean? So and here's the thing, some of those folks, even if they had the best of the best, the best, and got everything, they're still not happy. Again, 1111 on the folks in the lakes. So before you go breaking your back in the bank to be impressing somebody, just realize sometimes some of these buddies are just busy buddies, right? And they're not going to be happy for nobody. Okay, it's just how it is. So again, set that burden down of expectation, right? Wah, wah. Stillness. Yeah, and if they have something to say about it, again, know that you don't have to react. People questioning their lifestyle. Oh, look at them, they're always having parties, blah blah. Well, you too can have a nice nicely outfitted party if you go to the right dollar stores and shop around a little bit, put in the tiny bit of effort, you know. Even that one Five Below has the balloons these days. Well, we lost our party city, so you know what I mean. We also lost our red lobster, which I was very disappointed about. But you know, what can you do? What can you do? One of my relatives has a wedding coming up. I'm gonna see if there's a red lobster in that town. And then go eat a red lobster one more time. Anyway, I like red lobster. I thought they did a good job, you know. Anyway, yeah, connection. So you might be questioning what you're connecting with, right? And one way to do that is stillness. And it's not like, oh, well, let's go here and let's do this, and you're like, you know what? I've done enough running around during the week. I don't, you know, maybe your house is your chill spot. You know, maybe that's where you get your thinking done. You know, do you have to be at Red Rocks in Colorado to have the moment? You know what I mean? You know, when the first time I went out there, there was a couple in line by me, and they said they lived close, so like they're lucky to go all the time. You know what I mean? Like for some people, that's in their backyard, right? You know, what's in your backyard helping you to get that stillness? And hopefully you can hear the birds. You know, you ever wonder like what they're saying? It's like they're talking to you. They're probably saying, yo, you're low on this one feeder cake back here. They're a lot nicer to me than the squirrels. Which now I like that now that I have the fence, the big fence in the back, um, the dog, she can kind of freely chase after the squirrels. If a squirrel decides to come through the backyard, she can feel like a real rascal. All right, folks. Well, that has been today's check-in. So thank you for all the likes in the chat today. Sorry I wasn't really able to see much that was going on in the chat, but remember, you do not have to be a subscriber in order to like the video, so your likes do help promote the channel and the messages, okay? So it's a lot easier for me to get on here and do a message where more people can see it and benefit and hear it than, you know, when I do personal reads. Those are very, you know, targeted messages for individuals, okay, that are asking specific questions. So you know, when I tap it and get on here, you know, it's for everybody in the collective. And you know, that even includes honestly people that aren't in the collective yet, right? We're all on our own journey and time frame in different parts of our journeys, right? If you cannot type one, what? I don't think this is correct. I'm going to report them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dun, 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 dun. All right. And then, anyway. Watch a documentary called Level. What's it about, Mike? Isaac says, watch a documentary called literally any documentary that isn't conspiracy theory based. Oh. There is like a grounding documentary, and I did read about grounding, and it's positive effects on the body. There are grounding mats that people sell. Um, sometimes the jewelry, certain jewelry can help to be grounding. But simply going outside and putting your feet in the dirt, you know what I mean? Not wearing shoes, you know what I mean? On putting your feet on wood, earth, sand, stuff like that. Water, you know. So even for grounding, like water, like taking a shower would be a nice activity that really anybody could do, right? Even if you're like running late, you're on like mom time, you know what I mean? Take a washcloth, wipe all your face, get the important parts, right? Including the bottoms of your feet, right? Oh my god, I saw this is some internet picture of a guy and his lady they were walking, it was like on the strip in Vegas. So you can imagine, right? And the bottoms of her feet were so filthy. And somebody commented like about what them feet are gonna be doing later. I thought, ew. It's like, yeah, hopefully they get that cleaned up before they, you know what I mean? But some people don't. When you go in these hotels and stuff, that's not like having my camper. You know what I mean? It's like having my own hotel room, so I don't have to rely on, the judgments of other people. I know they try and clean the rooms and everything, but some folks are just nasty, you know? Bella says, I am Sarah from the UK. Raphael says, I'm into gay Jesus. Well, Jesus was a happy fellow. Wandering around with his fishing buddies, causing trouble all the time, right? All right, folks, I am going to call it for today. So please do enjoy the rest of your weekend. Make the most of it. Get out there and look at the pink moon as well. There's also that famous song, I believe it's by Nick Drake. Yes. He was kind of like a jazzy folky, I want to say. That's how I would describe his music. It's very pretty. First, like, I think it had a resurgence when they had like this Volkswagen cabriolet commercial, right? And they were using the Pink Moon music in the commercial. But some of his music is kind of, I wouldn't say dark, but it has some not as joyful themes. You know what I mean? And again, so this being, the first card that came out, and then on top of that, Cherish, right? So, here's the thing. Sometimes other folks aren't ready to celebrate with us. You know what I mean? So we have to do what we can, right? And sometimes that even includes our family, unfortunately. You know what I mean? But, you have to keep going. Just keep going. What's that Queen song? Don't stop me now, having such a good time. Dun, 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 don't stop me now. The birds chirping is so peaceful. Yes, definitely. And yeah, in the wintertime, we can't really enjoy it as much. So yeah, I've been enjoying being able to sit outside the last few days. We do have a chance of rain where I'm at, but I haven't seen it come through yet today, maybe in this evening. Anyway, until next time, you guys, please do manifest wisely. Bye-bye.